Welcome everyone to Swimming with Sharks Adventures in Sales Ops. My name is Will Smith. I am your host for today's adventure, and we've got a great show lined up for you. So please let us know if you're tuning in on Facebook Live, or if you're tuning in on YouTube, or if you're tuning in on Twitter. Let us know, or Periscope. Let us know where you're coming from, and just give us a comment, engage with us. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We got a great adventure lined up for you. I'm so excited. Let's quit talking about it. Let's get right to it. Today's adventure, we're going to start with the word of the week, and then we're going to go straight to our interview with Greg Accardo. We're then going to go into our power play. Got a question for you, and then we'll wrap things up until next time. So thanks for joining us today. And in case you didn't know, today is all about, or this podcast, this live show is all about sales operations. And we've got a great interview lined up for you. But let's start with our word of the week for today, and that is lead nurturing. And let me tell you, one of the reasons why I came up with lead nurturing is because sometimes, even if it's a simple word for you, it's also known as drip marketing. If it's a simple word that you already know, I thought of this last night. I was watching Seinfeld, and there's this great, whether you're a Seinfeld fan or not, there's this great scene where George Costanza is assigned by his father to sell computers. And he's got this whole list of just phone numbers. And so he's ready to sell these computers. He's got competition with his childhood friend, Lloyd Braun. And so if you're a Seinfeld fan, you know what I'm talking about. I wish I could play the episode. Unfortunately, with copyright and everything, I'm sure that couldn't happen. So anyway, George picks up the phone, and he's really angry because he's just not going to make his quota. And his dad's just breathing down his neck. And he says, "Hello, Mrs. Enright, you want to buy a computer?" "No? Well, why not?" "Okay, that's actually a really good reason." And hangs up the phone. Just cold called her just like that and just said, "Hey, I'm selling this computer. Do you want to buy this computer?" And frankly, we all know that that is just way too cold. Just way too, there's no nurturing, there's no communication, there's no relevancy, there's no expectation, there's nothing there. And so George, I'm sure that you're not a great salesperson, George Costanza from Seinfeld. So no offense to anybody named George out there. And so with lead nurturing, you're continuing to provide value for your prospective client, for your lead, whomever you're communicating with that you're trying to sell to. And so that is continuing with relevant. The key word here is relevant communication. You're continuing to move your lead through the life cycle stage, and you're establishing and you're continuing a relationship. And that's the important part. It's a relationship. It's personal, because frankly, Mrs. Enright, in that example that I gave you in Seinfeld, had no idea who George Costanza was. And we didn't even hear her voice on the TV show in the clip there. It was just one swift motion, just really a very cold call. Nothing wrong with cold calling. There are good ways of doing it. But in order to really establish that relationship, in order to really nurture Mrs. Enright in this example into purchasing a computer, we need to nurture these relationships. And so lead nurturing is today's word of the week. So keep that in mind as you are cranking out emails. Sometimes if you're doing a lot of emails, it gets really difficult because you're saying the same thing over and over again. How can you personalize and let your prospective client know that you are that you are helping them, that you are trying to be helpful, you're trying to establish a relationship, and that you know their situation? So the word of the week, lead nurturing. And now we get to the next part of our adventure. We're talking with Greg Accardo. And so if you have any questions for Greg, please make sure that you comment. Please make sure that you let us know what those questions are. We'll try to answer them live. If not, we'll try to get back to you in some way. But Greg here is the founder and host of a great podcast. I was checking it out just before our show today called Talking Sales. So if you're a podcast listener, check that out with Greg Accardo. He is also an avid LSU football fan, and as you can see from his profile picture, he wears the school colors on his tie. Great guy. Now, one thing to keep in mind that he is very proud of this. Last year, 2019, and he'll tell us a little bit more about this, his sales team placed third in the International Collegiate Sales Competition, which is a great, great honor. So he was telling me about that, and I'm excited to have you guys understand that as well. He is a huge proponent of personalization. Not so much alliteration, but definitely a proponent of personalization. And when he's working, he is the director of the LSU Professional Sales Institute. Please welcome to the show, Greg Accardo. How are you doing today, Greg?
I'm good, Will. Thank you for inviting me.
This is fantastic. It's great to have you. I want to say, welcome to the professor. It's good to have a professional, a professor of sales. And what Greg does is that he basically, if he were explaining this to his family, he basically says to them, "Hey, listen, I teach the next generation of sales leaders." So tell us a little bit about that, Greg.
So, great question. That's kind of the concept of what we do in higher ed. In the LSU College of Business. I mean, we're teaching a lot of future leaders in accounting, finance, business law, marketing, but also sales. So, what I like to think is that the students who are coming through our program, who I get to interact with on a daily basis, who are really smart students who, have some of them I would like to say are smarter than I am. But what I like to think is that we're giving them the skills that they're going to use, that one day they're going to be leading great companies into great adventures, nice profits, being able to hire a lot more people. But more importantly, they are the leaders that are going to show the really innovative ways to solve complex business problems.
I like that. That is terrific. So I like that you're humble enough to say, hey, some of these people are probably smarter than I am, but you still get to work with them and you still get to lead them and show them exactly what sales is. I love that. That's terrific. So let's get right to it, Greg. What's something that you have definitely discovered at LSU that you discovered a better way of doing one particular thing that you do exclusively at, maybe not exclusively at LSU, but what's something that you excel at?
Well, I like to think that one of the things that we're really pushing the envelope on and kind of charting our own course and discovering new things is the use of video. And I don't mean this video for the sake of creating a TikTok or something of that nature for entertainment. No, what I mean is we are teaching our students and we're utilizing available technology to create pre-approach video to enhance the relationship opportunity with prospects or leads that you may be calling on to sell a product or service. And there's a movement now, and this movement has been going on, I think, since pre-COVID, that, because of a lot of technology and a lot of noise that's going on in the atmosphere around business, that you've got to break through that somehow. And you've got to be able to ask decision makers for a little bit of their time and attention. Now, if you're like me and you open up your email box every morning and it's just, you know, unbelievable amounts of unsolicited,
Right.
unasked for pre-approach emails that you can smell a mile away that it's a template. And trust me, when you work in higher ed, you do get a lot of sales emails. I never knew there was that much education software and other tools out there available, but there's a lot. But how do you break through all that noise? Okay, how do you make yourself stand out and be a difference maker? And what we're teaching our students is to do a little bit of research on your prospects and create a 20 to 30-second personalized video to not only introduce yourself, but to mention something important to them and maybe a little bit about why it would be to their benefit to have a meeting with you. And more importantly, put a call to action at that video, put it in the email, send that to them.
I love that.
And I can tell you from our analysis and our research, it has been a difference maker.
That is fantastic. I love that personalized approach. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, he is a proponent of personalization and also adding in that video. I think that's a huge element right there. So tell me a little bit about how you feel about email templates. You kind of mentioned that. Tell me how you feel about email templates.
Templates in my opinion, just my opinion. If you're in sales today and you're using templates, you're doing more harm than you are good to yourself. I would recommend getting rid of templates. Again, if you're like me, okay, and put yourself in a position of any business decision maker out there in the market today, okay, their inbox is full every day. Okay, I don't read any of those emails. So if you have a message or you have some content you think is important to me, if you're going to put it in a template email, I'm not going to see it. It is not going to come across my thought process. So you have to ask yourself if that is the reality, and if you want to take me as an example, if that's the reality, how are you going to break through that? And the response is that personalization is the one key ingredient that you need to add to your cadence. And there's not a better way to do that than with video. And you don't have to be a perfect videographer, have a studio in your home and worry about, lighting. No, you just need to create a personal video, you being natural. If you're in sales, you know how to be natural. And mention something that's important to the prospect. It's about them. And it needs to be about why they should take their valuable commodity, which is their time, and give you a little piece of it in exchange for what? What are you giving me in exchange for that 20 or 30 minutes that you want from me? You ever heard this term people always say, I'm never going to get that time back?
Yep.
I've heard that so many times. And if you think about it, when people have a bad experience, they say, I'll never get that time back. And it's true. You're never getting any. I mean, we all woke up this morning. We're never getting that time back. From the time I got out of bed, got dressed and came to work. So if you're going to ask for a slice of that commodity, what are you going to exchange for it? That's going to be of equal or greater value.
Oh, there's so much there that I love. Get away the template and get into the personalized stuff. Let me ask you about your video tools. Do you have one particular tool that you like? Do you have a custom solution there at LSU? What are you using? Without giving away too many trade secrets, what are you using that you like?
Well, I'm happy to share that a few years ago, I was introduced to email videos by a colleague from University of Arizona.
Okay.
And they were using the tool and they were calling it a Visime. And they were creating a videoed resume for their students, which is basically you're creating an elevator pitch.
Okay.
And I started thinking, so, wow, we're going to try that also. So I started doing a little bit of testing and exploring on my own. And we found one company that had a really great online system that it was the basic version was no cost, where you could go in and create a 20-30 second video that you could embed into an email body and email that out. There's some tracking analytics on the back end to tell you when someone watched the video, how long they watched it, if they sent it to someone else. And along the way, I was introduced to another company, and I'm happy to mention their name, BombBomb.
BombBomb.
So I reached out to someone from BombBomb back when we first shut down the country back in March. And we all were teaching at home, and I was looking for some new tools to introduce my students to. So I reached out to someone from the company, and that day I had two Zoom calls about how we could use their product as part of our sales curriculum. A couple of weeks later, I had a Zoom call with the CEO of the company. We even talked about some research topics that we could partner with.
Nice.
So those are really great conversations. But so now we really, our students are all using BombBomb within our curriculum, and we're teaching them how to leverage this technology to get results when you're trying to get an appointment with someone.
That's great. What are you testing? So I like how you tested a few things out with this Visime. It sounds like almost like a highlight reel for for a worker, or this is what I've accomplished. I love that you tested that stuff. Is there anything you're testing right now that you're to kind of further things along? It sounds like you're set on BombBomb, but is there anything out there that you're doing some research on? What are you testing?
Well, we are building what we call our sales stack. for our students and our curriculum. So we have a couple of tools that would integrate together as to help, move along the sales process.
Right.
We're using some artificial intelligence tools that our students have access to where they can research their prospects to find out really important information. All of that gets translated into sort of an approach that you would put into a video presentation to a prospect. Again, these are 20, 30-second little short recorded clips that would drop into body of an email that when you send that off, if they watch it, the analytics are going to show the student somebody watched my video. Now that's a call to action. I need to take this buyer's journey, this nurturing this relationship, like we talked about earlier in your show, to the next step. Right? We're nurturing this thing along to building that relationship where we can have discussions about needs, problems, where our product or service can help them accomplish, makes them better at what they do. But so we're building that stack. Just to go back a little bit, we're building that sales stack with a couple of unique tools. We're using AI, video, and conversation intelligence, in addition to the other HubSpot tools that we're already using in the program.
Oh, fantastic. Tell me a little bit more about that conversation intelligence. How does that work, and how does that fit into the tech stack mix?
So, and I have to admit, Will, I'm brand new to working with this platform of conversation intelligence. So we're using Chorus, great tool. And I basically was introduced to Chorus back in the spring. This is another tool that when we in the pandemic shutdown, I'm doing a lot of homework and I'm reaching out to people.
The professor and his homework. I like it.
Yeah. And so I actually beta tested the Chorus platform with a summer class that I was teaching called Entrepreneurship Sales.
Oh, nice.
And these are students who are not in a sales program. They're entrepreneurship students who want to learn how to sell. So I said during the summer, well, we're going to test you guys on Chorus. And so we started doing interactive B2B role plays over Chorus, and the students were blown away.
Oh, wow.
At the back end dashboard analytics that gave them feedback and coaching about the conversation they just had.
Oh, wow.
They were really blown away. So I was also impressed at their reaction. So fast forward to fall semester. Now, every one of the students in the two sections that I teach, we will start probably sometime in the next 2 weeks with role play exams. And those are all going to be done on Zoom, but they're going to be recorded through Chorus, which is going to analyze that conversation in the back end. And we're both now going to have a coaching tool that we can look at together, the student and I, and we're going to be able to look at the types of questions they asked, how many filler words they may have used, who actually spoke the longest. There's a visual graphic that says who spoke the longest in this conversation, whether or not they were speaking over me or me over them and not listening. We're always trying to improve the listening skills of our students. Now we got a visual that we can show them when they weren't listening. They were trying to talk and it should have been listening.
That's I love that, because it's don't just tell me I wasn't listening, show me. You have that visual representation. Hey, you weren't listening right here. That's fantastic. So tell me a little bit about, this. It sounds like you're really doing your research. You're doing your homework. You're not just, you didn't just get tenure and say, hey, I'm just going to sit back and let it ride. You're really on the edge of a lot of really cutting edge technology here. But let's take a look at what do you think there's a failure that's happening in sales right now, that or that you think that a failure that people are headed for?
Well, I think it gets back to the first point you were making about personalization. If you go back and look at all of the sales professionals who made very good livings. Their companies did well. They were meeting quota, exceeding quota every year. And those professionals, experienced sales professionals, built their living on being able to build relationships. Those relationships in the past were built in a 3D environment where you could go to lunch with someone. You could show up at their office and shake their hand and have a conversation and shake hands when you were finished talking, and there's a human element to that, correct? Right.
Yes.
So now we've all been pushed into this 2D environment. And there's a lot of people who have trouble adapting to going from 3D to 2D. There's a different skill set. Okay, you don't build relationships the way you did before, when you could go and impress someone by how great you were dressed or what type of a lunch you could buy for them. Those days are over, where you would bring in samples and do an in-person demo.
Right.
So are we going to go back to what it was before in the good old days? I think the jury is still out on that, but I do believe that there's always, from now on, we're going to be dealing with and operating in a hybrid environment, with virtual becoming a big part. And there's a couple of reasons for that. A couple of the reasons center around economics.
Yeah.
So if you have a sales rep in the field who's got an expense account, maybe traveling, airfare, hotels, rental cars, food, now those people are working virtually, and those airline bills are gone. The hotel bills have disappeared. They're no longer buying lunches. Now those dollars are showing up on company balance sheets. Those expenditures, they're not being used. But if at the same time you've got teams of people that are accomplishing the same amount of production and sales without those expenses, why would a company put their people back out into the field?
Because we like lunch.
Well, I mean, I love lunch.
Everybody
too.
likes lunch.
Yeah, I love lunch too, but it comes down to expenses, right? Because every company's got to make a profit, and they all do that by, number one, controlling costs. So if your field cost for your sales team is an acceptable amount, and you just realized over the last 6 months that, wait a minute, our costs are way down for our field reps, but we're still making good margins or good profits. Yeah. Why would you make the decision to reverse that and put those people back in the field? I think there's going to be some number crunching. There's going to be a lot of discussions once COVID is over, if it ever does end, but I'm pretty sure it's going to end. But there's going to be some high level discussions at companies about whether or not it's worth it for them to put teams back in the field like the way they did before.
Could you give me an example? I love that. I think that's great. Can you give me another example of a commonly held belief in the sales industry that you disagree with?
Well, first one is templates, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm just totally 100% against using templates. Just a spray and pray method.
Yep.
Those activities really are what probably contributed to the bad reputation of salespeople.
Yep.
And it's a little bit lazy and can be a little bit sloppy. But if I'm one of these sales reps that I'm basically leaning on sending out hundreds of thousands of just blasted emails a day to see which one comes back, and those are the ones that I'm going to call on. Think about the collateral damage you're doing to your industry and the sales profession as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw something, it was probably on LinkedIn, which is where you and I connected, that basically said, hey, listen, if your ad interrupts my YouTube video, I'm not going to like your product. And I think that's along those same lines where, if you're just doing this spray and pray methodology, there's no personalization there. I'm really not going to, I like the term you use, the collateral damage. And not only does it hurt your company's reputation, but it also hurts the reputation of salespeople as well. So luckily, you're training the next generation of sales leaders, and they know to definitely make sure that they don't do that. So tell me a resource that you channel, tool, something that you just can't live without. It's like your daily go-to, or just something that you use on a regular basis.
Well, I think that's an easy one. That's an easy call to make. I think LinkedIn is probably going to be that tool that I'm going to lean on. I not only use LinkedIn just for gathering new knowledge and new information, new insights from other people, but it's also a great tool for me, especially in what I do, staying connected with my former students, my graduates that are out working
Ah,
in the field,
mm,
but also with colleagues at other universities that also that are teaching sales. We get to collaborate a little bit, share, ideas. I'll put out things, like this sales tiger thing that we developed just over the summer, and I've had some feedback from a few schools that, hey, that's a great idea about how we can motivate students to earn additional knowledge and skills while they're in school, that we don't push them to do it, but hey, this is an elective thing they can do, and recognize them for it, especially when you're coming into a sales environment that's much more dependent on technology, much
yeah.
more demanding. The hiring has dropped, so there's less hiring now than there was this time last year. What are you going to do to make yourself different to all the recruiters that are going to be looking for fewer people, but they're looking for specialized skills? They're looking for special people, maybe a little bit more drive. You need something you can show off other than just a BS degree in marketing. Great. There's thousands of marketing graduates. What makes you different?
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that tiger. How was that developed? That was actually the post that when I saw that, I said I got to get in touch with this guy. I got to get in touch with Greg here because I think that this is, it separates a lot of people. Are you willing to put in the work? So tell us a little bit about the development. What's part of this program?
Well, we have been using HubSpot Academy to supplement some of the classes
Okay.
that we teach. And what I mean supplement, these would just be additional assignments that we would add in. And for a long time, we required all of our sales graduates who graduating LSU with a BS in marketing with a concentration in professional sales. They had to have a inbound sales certification from HubSpot and the CRM software certification. We made them have those two.
Gotcha.
So that was a few years back. That was about 5 years
Okay.
ago we started that. Well, recently HubSpot has been enhancing their offerings in HubSpot Academy around sales. For example, they've added a sales enablement certification. They've added a frictionless sales, sales model built on a flywheel.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a sales management training. So we said, well, what we'll do? We're going to create a package for our students. And the 5 certifications that I just mentioned, the inbound sales, software certification, frictionless sales, sales enablement, and the sales management training. If you earn those 5 certifications on your own, in addition, you complete the professional sales concentration and you participate on the LSU sales team, we're going to give you a special recognition. You're going to be called a sales tiger.
There we go.
And that's a label that you're going to be able to carry with you into a job interview and explain to that recruiter why that title exists, what you had to do to earn it, and how it's going to make you better at the job they're recruiting for.
I think that's fantastic. Now, just for those of you that are listening, those of you that are listening and watching, I'm going to have Greg go through those 5 certificates one more time, because so many people, when they get to the HubSpot Academy, they say, oh, there's so many certifications. There's so much great stuff here. Where do I start? So, Greg, give us the 5 that are part of your certification, your Tiger Award. And this would be, especially for sales and marketing professionals, this is where you should start. Go.
Yeah. So it's inbound sales, HubSpot sales software, frictionless sales, sales enablement, and sales management training.
There it is, folks. That's where you should start. That's where you should start, coming directly from the professor.
And also, you can go to HubSpot Academy and actually filter your searches for certifications from marketing or sales. So they make that very easy to pick from the menu, the ones that are sales focused and the certifications that are marketing focused.
Yeah, that was so it's been a while for me since I've been back at the academy, but I think that's a fairly new feature for those that are saying, where do I start? Where do I keep going? For me, I'm usually just kind of keeping my certifications rolling. But for somebody that's new, definitely use that to filter out where do I want to go and choose your path. Self-selection. I think that's fantastic. Greg, I want to wrap up with this final honor that you and I were talking about at this before we went live. And tell me about your third place overall win at the 2019 International Collegiate Sales Competition. Tell me about that team. Tell me about your season. Tell me about this competition as well.
So the ICSC, which is the International Collegiate Sales Competition, I think we talked about this, is hosted by Florida State University, and they do it in Orlando, and it's in November. So the ICSC is a little bit different when it comes to collegiate sales competitions because it tends to be more comprehensive in what's involved with it. So you not only have your typical two B2B role play competitors, but you've also, in addition, you've got a parallel team of two students who are doing a sales management case competition. Now, these students do not receive the case until 24 hours before their presentation. So the heat is on them. When they show up in Orlando, they have a meeting, they get the case. Those two students then go lock themselves in a room and they prepare. They've got 24 hours to prepare their presentation for a panel. And it's usually based around a technology implementation for a sales team or a hiring issue that needs to go on, maybe recruiting, something of nature, but it's going to be sales management related. But there's a lead up. There's a lot of activities that lead up. So you've got about 80 to 88 universities that will participate in the event itself. But only 32 teams are going to have a case management team come to Orlando. The students have to compete in a sales management simulation in an industry of about 8 other universities, and they have to win that industry to make it to Orlando. So you've got that part of it. Your role play competitors have to do a warm call competition about 2 weeks before they even go to Orlando. So it really tests it. What it does, it takes the students, it's going to test all their skills, their role play skills, their phone call skills, their data skills, because this is involved in the case management, sales management education, presentation abilities. So it's pretty comprehensive. And for our school to make it all the way to third place last year, I was very impressed with the amount of work those 4 students did to get there.
It sounds great, and I can hear the pride coming out of your voice as you're talking about it. I can just tell that this was it sounds like such a great honor, and not only that, it sounds like these folks are going to be very well prepared when they do enter the workforce, when they do get that first sales job. It might even be easier, like we were talking. It might even be easier than going through their classwork at LSU, so which is a good thing. That means you're truly preparing them. Well, listen, Greg, I didn't get any questions out there. It sounds like you covered everything that we needed to know, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for joining us on Swimming with Sharks, Adventures in Sales Ops. One last question: who inspires you? Who inspires you to do what you do? Is it somebody you know, somebody in the past? Who inspires you?
Well, that's a tough question, Will, but I will say this. I'm lucky enough, fortunate enough to work somewhere where there's a lot of people who are a lot smarter than I am. These are all PhDs, academics, data researchers, and being in that environment, I think inspires me to want to be better at what I do. And in turn, it helps me to prepare my students.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And if you weren't able to join us live, we're going to put these out on a podcast, Swimming with Shark, Adventures in Sales Ops. But I also want to make sure that you check out Greg's podcast. Give us a quick soundbite from that. Tell us about your podcast, Greg.
So thanks for asking. So Talking Sales is a podcast we launched last year, and our main focus is education leaders, thought leaders in the world of sales, sales research. And also we try to attract a lot of sales students to listen to the podcast. Hopefully they'll acquire some knowledge from those discussions that help improve their discussions they're having with recruiters and company leaders once they leave LSU.
I love that. I'm definitely going to subscribe because based on what we've talked about today, I quickly listened to a couple of episodes, but what we talked about today, it sounds like LSU, you, Greg, and LSU are definitely on the leading edge there. So I want to thank you for your time today. And we're going to move on to the last part of our adventure. Thanks, Greg. Have a good one.
You too.
We're going to move on to the last part of our adventure here, everyone. And this is going to be a tool. We talked about, Greg talked about using video, but a lot of people, they're not comfortable with video. They're not ready for video. They worry about lighting. What am I going to look like? What am I going to say? All these things. And so a few weeks ago in our first episode, I mentioned a tool, a resource called Loom, which you can find at loom.com. And a friend of mine pointed out to me, hey, you know what, Will? I know a lot of people that aren't very comfortable with downloading software, with installing software, with getting used to new software like Loom or like some other tools that are out there like Vidyard. They're not comfortable with that. And so what I wanted to give to you today is a very simple way. This is almost like a starter method. Maybe it's a way to get that person who is not feeling quite right about getting on video, but they want to record their screen. And so that's the simple website, recordscreen.io. You don't have to download anything. There are no watermarks on your final screen. There's really no time limits on your recording, and it's also secure. Your videos are processed within the browser there. They're not sent to record screen servers. And so to me, this is a great introductory way to get into screen recording. And so they don't have to worry about what they look like on camera, but maybe they're doing a software demo, for example. They don't have to worry about what they look like. All they have to do is just demo the product, demo the software, and record their screen. So for those of you that maybe aren't too comfortable being on camera, this could be kind of the first step. Maybe you don't have leadership buy-in into doing video just yet. This could be a first step. So you can demo your product, you can demo your software, or whatever you would like. So the whole purpose of the Power Play is to give you something that when you're finished listening or finished watching this live stream, that you can just go out and do immediately. So I encourage you to take a look at recordscreen.io. And so as we wrap things up, I want to ask you this question. Next week is Inbound 2020, and I want to know, usually it is a live event, and it's put on by HubSpot, and I have to admit, it's one of my favorite events. And so I went to it last year. This year, I have the honor of being a breakout speaker, and so I wanted to know, are you going? Are you going to Inbound? Are you going online? Are you using the free pass? Are you using the Powerhouse Pass? What's your investment level? Are you going to see a couple of things and still do some work? It's difficult when you're not going to Boston. It's difficult when you're still at home and you have to debate, okay, you're still working. Should I take that meeting? Well, do I need to go to Inbound? Do I not need to go to Inbound? And if you can, I would definitely suggest and recommend that you invest time in yourself and go to Inbound if you're able to, if you have the time. They offer a free pass. There's plenty of great stuff there. If you want to step it up a little bit, you can also go with the Powerhouse Pass. So let me know in the comments, or let me know if you're watching the replay. Let me know on the podcast. Just get in touch with me and let me know if you're going to Inbound 2020. You can link up with me, or you can link up with Greg on LinkedIn and connect with me there, and I can actually help you out with a little bit of a discount, a speaker discount. It'll bring your Powerhouse Pass down to $49. So if you want something like that, get in touch with me and let's meet up at Inbound, because there will be meetup sessions. We may not be in the same environment, we may not be in the same area, but at least we can be together online. So take some time, invest in yourself, learn something new, be inspired, and try going to Inbound. That's my shameless plug for Inbound, because I think it's good for a lot of people who are listening to this show. And so until next time, I want to thank you for joining us today. Please get in touch with us. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. What do you like to see on the show? Who would you like us to interview? Let's have a conversation. Let's get together, let's grow this, and let's make this happen. And so I ask you that you get in touch with us through the Man and Bite Facebook or on LinkedIn. You can get in touch with me. It's Will Smith Manobite on LinkedIn. Get in touch with Greg. Let's have a conversation. Because one thing that I will say about today's live show that we talked about over and over again, and that is definitely relationship. But you got to put yourself out there. You got to say, hey, let's start a conversation. Let's begin a conversation. So get in touch and let us know what you like and how we could help you get better by watching this show. So until next time, we thank you for joining us today, and let us know where you're coming from. And we ask that you take a look either on the replay or you can take a listen on our podcast. But until next time, we hope that your adventures are all great. Take care, everybody.